This is the Khmer Times News. My name is Paolo Bonini, but this is not the weekly news, for I am in hospital having surgery. Therefore, we bring you a Ukraine war update. For war in Europe still rages on, and in this special report, I bring you up to date as to exactly what is going on and why is Russia, with the world's second strongest army, in all sorts of trouble. Firstly, let's look at Russia next to Ukraine. There's quite the size difference, and the amount of land Russia was trying to absorb was all of Ukraine. But so far they have only managed a small slither in the east in the past 2.5 years. And when you have the supposed second largest army in the world, that is hugely embarrassing. There have been minor gains for Russia, like taking over Bakhmut, but the gains are insignificant for over 2 years of fighting. That is, unless you look towards the Kursk region, where the Ukrainians have now invaded Russia. And that, for the strong man of Russia, Vladimir Putin, is deeply humiliating. The Kursk region is steeped in history and pride due to the largest tank battle the world has ever seen being fought there in World War II, where the Russians beat real Nazis, not the supposed ones they say they are fighting today. That, though, is the very tip of the iceberg of woe, as Putin has brought down on his nation a disaster of such epic proportions, it has undermined many foundations of a crumbling Russian economy. Let us take as just one example the case of the S-400 missile defense system. They were thought to be the best in the world. That was until the Ukrainian war, when they kept getting blown up by missiles. Yes, the missile defense system that is supposed to create an impenetrable shield could not even defend itself. Oh dear. But why does this all matter? Well, Russia sells an awful lot of military equipment, $47 billion worth of weapon sales every single year. Well, they used to, before the poor quality of their weapon systems was exposed by this Ukrainian conflict. Now, as an example, there is India. India is the biggest customer for Russia, and they just spent $5.5 billion on that S-4 missile defense system, only to see it fail horribly in the Ukrainian war. But not only did they see it, also, India's enemies saw it, and they saw that this new Russian missile defense system is not very good at all. And already India is now shifting to Western weapons suppliers to patch up that hole in their missile defenses. And these weapon failures are across the board. Over 3,000 Russian tanks have already been destroyed in Ukraine. The latest tank is the Russians' T-90, which was quoted as the best tank in the world. It wasn't even the best tank in Ukraine, and orders for it have now completely dried up. It's not just the tanks that are performing so badly, as Russia's latest jet fighter, the Su-57, is so bad the Russians did not even take it into battle. When launched, they said it was a 5th generation jet, which means it has stealth capability. But when everyone had stopped laughing at such an absurd claim, the Russians then called it 4th generation plus plus, whatever the hell that is supposed to mean. The financial rot for Russia goes even further, as the Ukrainian war has now ruined Russia's energy business. When you see headlines like this, you get an idea as to how bad it is. Gazprom's Russia's largest energy supplier, and they have posted a loss. Now that is shocking beyond shocking. As you must remember, Russia is very much reliant on energy exports, and gas alone makes up 25% of their GDP. And when Gazprom is losing money, nearly $7 billion a year, that is a major financial blow. But it's right across the board. Their once proud space industry, Roscosmos, has lost a vast sway of its business. Even before the war, to SpaceX they were losing business, but now nearly all satellite launches have been cancelled. And the space sector is literally crumbling into ruins. The Russian nightmare only gets worse. The whole point of Putin's war was to denazify Ukraine, which is a bit rich, seeing as their prime minister is in fact Jewish. But that's the banner that Russia are still waving on their national media. Another one of their main pillars for their invasion was to shore up their borders against NATO. So how did that work out for them? Well, not very well, seeing as Finland and Sweden both joined NATO due to the invasion. And that one act, in fact, doubled NATO's border with Russia. And even worse than that, the NATO countries are now within spitting distance of Moscow, reducing potential travel time for any ballistic missile attack. A complete and utter disaster for the Kremlin. And it's not just Sweden and Finland, with over 88 countries signing a UN letter condemning Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The whole world launched a barrage of sanctions that has wreaked havoc on the Russian economy. The Russians have their supporters, though. They are Cuba, Iran, and Venezuela. Then, of course, there is North Korea, who have just had a state visit by Vladimir Putin to sign a much-needed weapons deal. And that may well be Putin's last visit for many a long year. You see, as of the 17th of March 2023, following an investigation into war crimes and crimes against humanity, the International Criminal Court has issued an arrest warrant for Vladimir Putin for being a war criminal. And you may think this is all just posturing and one side being jolly unfair. But know this, on the Russian side alone, over 600,000 soldiers have been killed or injured. In a war where the Russian front line has moved barely a few kilometers in 2.5 years. That is an absolute disaster. The Russian army ranks are now being filled with conscripts who have no heart to fight and are very badly trained. They are not soldiers, just confused, frightened men with guns who watch the horrors of their comrades dying. Russia is in a desperate state and the military is in tatters. Their military export trade is now globally shunned due to their poor weapon systems. The jewel in the crown, their energy companies are posting losses. Their once proud space program is rotting away to nothing. And their leader cannot even leave the country as he is a wanted war criminal. But all of this is not the true tragedy for Russia. The tragedy lays in the human cost, and that is best counted by videos posted on social media. Videos like this one, like this one, like this one, and this one. It goes on and on and on. The true tragedy of these videos is each and every one of them depicts a young Russian soldier who can no longer stand the insanity of the war that they are fighting in. In each and every one of these videos, you can watch a young man blow his own head off with his own assault rifle. The reason being, he's being stalked by one of Ukraine's drones. You see, the Russian soldiers see these drones above them, and they know it will at least cause an explosion that will blow off a limb. But more than likely, they are going to die in appalling agony. So they take their rifles and they kill themselves as the drones hover above, watching and filming. There are so many of these films of young men committing suicide in abject terror. I have watched some of them, and they are the most horrifying thing I have ever seen. And I absolutely mean that. But these countless suicide films tell a much bigger story. They denote how bad this war is going for Vladimir Putin and how hopeless it has all become for some. Young men rounded up to serve what they consider as a dictator in a foolish war. They hear the whine of a drone above their heads. They see the explosive package it carries. They know there is no escape. But worse, on the battlefield prior, they have seen the numerous mutilated bodies of comrades who have been hit by these exact same drones. So the soldiers just kill themselves. Droves of young men in a foreign land blowing out their own brains for a war that few of them understand. But here is the final irony. These drones are called suicide drones, as they are of course destroyed on impact. But now it's not the drones committing suicide, but healthy young men who once had so much to live for.